Okay, being 5 p.m., the Lafourche Parish Council meeting of January 11, 2022 is hereby called to order. Ms. Carleen, can you please conduct roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Adams. Present. Mr. Grow. Here. Mr. Melvin is absent. Mr. Wendell. Here. Mr. Araby. Here. Chairman Oten.
Here.
Mrs. Chesson. Mr. Lorraine. President Chesson.
I'm here, man.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carleen. Looks like everyone's in attendance except Councilman Melvin. With that said, if everyone would please rise, we'll be led in the invocation by Councilman Grove, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Lorraine.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, we come to you this day asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Throughout 2022, help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make the best decisions that affect Lafourche Parish. We ask this in your name, amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Councilman Grove, that was well said. For
Recycled from 2007.
For those who are new to the council chambers, there are blue forms at the entrance of the chambers. If you're wishing to address the council, you can fill out one of the blue sheets, bring it up, get it to the council clerk. We'll be sure to recognize you. Aside for that, when we're going through ordinances, we will ask for if there's any public comment. Once we get to resolutions, however, it'll be strictly on the council's discussion. With that said, I'll jump right into the agenda. Item 8, Chairman's comments. So, as we all know, another challenging year. We just got through, we had continue with the COVID issues, and then, of course, this Hurricane Ida. So with that said, I want to thank the administration, for working with us. I want to thank the DA's office for always answering questions that we have to make sure we're doing things legit. And lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank both the council clerk's office and the council for us not having a whole lot of drama in 2021 and kind of moving the people's business along. So thank you very much, Ms. Carleen, Rachel, and I know Tara's not here, and thank you, council, for your professionalism that y'all showed up here in 2021. With that said, move to item.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Absolutely, Mr. Wendell.
I would like to thank you. You didn't thank yourself, but you have been the chairman for quite a few years, actually preceding my time on the council, so that says a lot about you as a public servant, you as a person, you as a chairman. So I just want to thank you from the council, from the public, for being that chairman. And as we do every year, I would like to present you with your golden gavel for being chairman for the council 2021. So thank you, sir. You've done a job. You've kept us on a great job, kept us on task. I know you've helped some of us personally, some of our districts respectively during the dozens of named storms 2 years ago through COVID and getting used to Zoom and still trying to go through government, maintain government, do what we needed to do to take care of business. And then most recently with the catastrophic storm, probably something that a lot of us around here haven't seen in quite some time. So as your duty as chairman, as you as Orman Otan, we appreciate it and thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jim. Amen. Well said.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something before we close and move on. I just want everybody to know that Chairman Oten has made history. First time in the council that we've had a chairman 3 years consecutively. I think that's such a great honor. And we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Carleen. Okay, let's get back to the people's business. Item B, appointment of officers for 2022. Item 1, nomination to select a chairperson for Lafourche Parish Council for the fiscal year 2022. I will now entertain a motion. Mr. Jones.
I nominate Mr. Jim Wendell.
Mr. Jim, do you accept?
Yes, sir.
Jim does accept. Do we have any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, nominations are now closed. All in favor of Jim, chairperson for 2022, hereby say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you, sir.
So with that said, at this point, I'll now hand the gavel over to Jim, and he gets to run the rest of this meeting. And it's at Jim's discretion if he wants to reassign us seating or if we will continue for tonight.
We'll stay where we are. Okay, item number 2, nomination to select vice chair for Lafourche Parish Council for fiscal year 2022.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jones.
I would like to nominate Ms. D-Lynn Chasson.
Mr. Lynn, do you accept? Anyone else? Any other nominations? All right, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor of Ms. Dylan Chasson being vice chair for 2022, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Really? Yeah, motion passes with 7 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 absence being Mr. Melvin. Went too fast. You moved her thing down there?
Oh, it's gavel in there?
All right, moving right along. Item C, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes? Motion by Mr. Adams to accept the minutes of the meeting November 23rd, regular session, which was deferred from the 12-14 meeting. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Jones. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 7 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 4, motion to accept the minutes of December 14th, 2021 regular session. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item D, Lafourche Parish Outstanding Citizen. Ought to have anything, Ms. Chesson? You have the floor, ma'am.
On November 23rd, I was invited to join our DA's office from Thibodaux, the DA's from East Baton Rouge Parish, and many Sacred Heart volunteers to serve up gumbo lunches to give to our community. Father Joey Lerat was in charge of the traffic line. Cars were lined up on the shoulder of LA1 southbound. He would allow a few cars at a time into the parking lot, not to block West 79th Street. Our car came off the pontoon bridge straight into the parking lot to get a lunch. The volunteers very politely explained to her where the back of the line was and that she was cutting those who had been waiting. They asked her to move her car to the back of the line. She became very abusive with her language and sped out of the parking lot at a high rate of speed, making a sharp U-turn and heading back for our line of volunteers. It was scary for adults, but there was a small child who had joined with her mom and was handing out blankets as well. She was shaking and crying while this was all taking place, and it happened so quickly that most of us froze, except for Mr. Warren Colley. His training with Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office kicked in, and Mr. Colley unholstered his weapon and went to her driver's side to get control of her and the car. As she was struggling with her foot on the gas pedal, he put the car into park and managed to get the keys out of the car as well. When she tried to run from him, her legs didn't work and she fell to the pavement. She was an impaired driver. Mr. Warren didn't just save those in the parking lot that day, but I'm certain others she may have encountered on the highway, as she should not have been behind the wheel of a car. I felt his heroic deed, while he probably doesn't see it as one, should definitely get recognition. And I want to thank Mr. Colley for your past service with our Sheriff's Office and your present job as investigator for the DA's office.
Thank you, Ms. Chasson. Lots of time those things go unnoticed, and it's very refreshing to see when people are noticed for what they do. Moving right along, item E, state and/or federal legislative updates. Anyone to speak on that? All right, item number F, presentations and/or updates. Number 5, parish president to recognize LPG employee of the month and/or WOW employees for the month of December. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, congratulations. Our employee of the month this month is Miss, I think her name's Tequila. Works for me. For outstanding work ethics and trait and good character and communication skills with coworkers and students. She demonstrates a good attitude and a willingness to assist anyone without being asked to do so. Her commitment to serve the children and families of Lafourche Parish Head Start is remarkable. Ms. Tequila's dedication has not gone unnoticed by her colleagues. And I will say that she is one of our teachers who goes above and beyond to help our kids every day as we try to get them ready for the school system's pre-K and kindergarten programs. She can't be with us here tonight, but we do have her certificate and we'll get it to her. But Ms. Tequila White from Head Start is our Employee of the Month. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moving on to item F, presentations and/or updates. Item number 6, Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser present a presentation regarding the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion Draft, EIS. Can you just make sure the microphone's turned on?
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Mike Entz. I'm the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for Lieutenant Governor Nungesser's office. I'm here on behalf of Lieutenant Governor Nungesser, who wanted me to send his sincere apologies as he was unable to attend tonight's meeting.
Excuse me, sir. Can we get
Yes.
your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. Mike Entz, 3656 Louisiana Avenue Parkway, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Thank you.
He asked that I attend tonight's meeting to share with you his opposition to the Nbsd EIS as it's been submitted for federal permit review, while highlighting the economic, environmental, and cultural impacts this project will inflict on our coastal stakeholders as well as residents. We want to thank the elected members in attendance, as well as stakeholders and residents, as well as CPRA for attending and continuing this conversation on a non-controversial project. Your resilience and pride in your community is a testament, and you know, we've had the fortune to come to some events in the past few months post Hurricane Ida that have, you know, left a lasting impact on all of us, and we just want to thank you for all your hard work and allowing to be a part of that redevelopment. So thank you so much. As you can see in the PowerPoint presentation before you, this is a project and topic that the Lieutenant Governor holds dear to his heart, and so he wanted me to come and share his opinion on that. And so starting off, first slide. Priority 1, do no harm. Restoration funds from the Deepwater Horizon incident cannot be used to inflict more harm on our natural resources already impacted by the oil spill. We're going to touch on the specifics of that later on in the presentation, as well as the findings that we've encountered from the many openings of the Bonnie Carey spillway in 2019. Next slide. I know we don't have to go over too much about what Louisiana's marine and fisheries resources mean to this parish as well as our coastal parishes. We land over 1 million pounds of seafood each year. Tourism is directly tied to our fisheries, as well as for our famous restaurants and cuisine, a place where chefs are even more famous than musicians. What we've known is the sheer amount of vessels and jobs that are created on the coast. There's over 1,400 shrimp vessels in the Gulf of Mexico now. That's according to Louisiana Shrimp Processors Association. And 41% of the nation's seafood comes directly from the Gulf of Mexico. 71% of that directly comes from Louisiana. We are the grounds for where our seafood is grown. Next slide. Regional and national opposition to the Nbsd. What you'll see in the first couple names there are parishes as well as municipalities that have come out in opposition to this project as it stands. 100% opposition as a fact, as well as St. Tammany Parish, who's gone back and forth and continued that conversation on how that may impact their parish. But as you'll notice there's a lot of names. You know, this is not 100% support for a project, and these are the people that we've continued to have conversations with regarding this project. Next slide. Protecting marine mammals. As you've probably heard, the Lieutenant Governor has spoken endlessly about the impacts of the shallow water bottlenose dolphin population that will be impacted in Barataria Bay from this project, and the environmental waiver that was sought regarding this issue and the impact. What we know is that dolphin pods has still not recovered from the BP oil spill, as well as the Bonnie Carey spillway openings. And what you've seen in those incidences is that these dolphin pods die a slow, agonizing death from freshwater intrusion into essentially their home. The importance of that impact is that the dolphin is at the top of the food chain. Everything underneath it is going to be impacted before it gets to the bottlenose dolphin population. Under the requirements of the MMPA, the state is going to be required to monitor and evaluate the impact of the dolphin population over a 5-year term. And you may have heard him say it repeatedly. We're not really sure how you monitor dolphins that have already perished. And so we would like to see more done on that. I think it's a question that it should be raised and highlighted. And we think that the EIS should be tapered back, and then a full and environmental scope should be done regarding the impact of the shallow water bottlenose dolphin population. Next slide. The Lieutenant Governor in the past year and a half has, of course, spoken with many entities, scientists, engineers, and through those continued conversations, he's met with Dr. Moby Solangi from the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies in Gulfport, who's directly monitored the impacts from the Bonnie Carey spillway openings and seen firsthand the mortality rates of the shallow water bottlenose dolphins, as well as Kipp's Ridley sea turtles. Over 337 dolphins perished as a result of those openings. It's the same river, same content. And what we'd like to see done is a response on the study that was completed by the Marine Mammal Commission, funded by the Marine Mammal Commission to further study this, which was done by the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, which has shown that it'll be an entire wipeout of the shallow water bottlenose dolphin population within that 30 to 50 year term, almost complete wiping out of the population in the first 10 years. Next slide, please. As you know, Lieutenant Governor Nungesser was a parish president in his past life, and during his time, he experienced a lot of the same occurrences that y'all have felt. During that time as parish president, he championed a coastal plan that focused on the 3 topics before you: lower storm surge, strengthen flood protection while lowering insurance rates, and protect critical marsh. It was one of the first, if not the first, real coastal restoration and protection plan using forested and sustainable ridges to lower storm surge now. And at the time, the project was praised by the Army Corps of Engineers as scary good for its effectiveness for storm surge, as well as the overall costs. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is Mr. Earl Armstrong, who post BP oil spill in Katrina brought the Lieutenant Governor out in Venice to see firsthand the benefits of sustainable ridges and its impact on storm surge in our coastal communities. Next slide, please. This is an image, an aerial image following Hurricane Katrina of cattle. Some of the that was left have survived post-Katrina. And as you can see, this shored, sustainable forested ridge was one of the only things left. And currently, to our understanding, that is a ridge that was built pre-Hurricane Betsy. Next slide, please. This is a diagram an image of a shored forested ridge and its impacts on storm surge, which what we know is the most critical component outside of wind damage for our named storms. Over 86% of hurricanes that hit Louisiana pass through Plaquemines Parish, similar to Lafourche Parish. It's a critical priority for the parish to lower storm surge using forested ridges. What we know is that it lowers storm surge 8 to 1 over areas of marsh grass, known to knock down 5-foot waves less than a foot. Next slide, please. This is a continuation of that model. As you can see, constructing a 1,000-foot berm and a 1,000-foot forested ridge built up to 8 feet high would reduce storm surge by 5 feet, whereas it would take 20 square miles of newly created marsh grass to reduce storm surge by 1 single foot. The Nbsd could potentially build back less than 5% of what is lost over the past 60 years. But most of it will be lost within 30, after 30-year mark. Next slide, please. This is a map of that coastal plan that the Lieutenant Governor put in place when he was parish president. As you can see, numerous ridges built on there, including what's currently being built in Spanish Pass for $100 million. Very happy to see that project going forward, which, as you can see, is this has previously been planned. This is going in motion now, and this is the plan that Lieutenant Governor would like to see put in motion across the entire state coastline. Next slide. So this letter is from former FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate talking about the cost benefit of implementing forested ridges as the premier project to reduce storm surge across our coast, now within the 5-year plan the Lieutenant Governor has been pushing instead of a 50-year plan. Next slide, please. So, a lesson from the past that's been shared with us from coastal stakeholders of previous projects that CPRA has put in motion, that has been designed, redesigned, and has essentially washing away any benefits that could be tabulated from the money spent. Next slide. I'm sure you're all aware of the Lieutenant Governor's work while he was parish president during the BP oil spill and his championing of the sand burn project that was continued on from berms to barriers following the BP oil spill. The project was permitted in 19 days and was supported both by the general administration as well as the White House. Next slide, please. This is an image of the sand burn plan in real time during the BP oil spill, and you can see its effectiveness. Next slide. This is a capture from an article following the burn plan that was championed by Lake Pontchartrain Basin Foundation, and essentially, continued on. This is what we see with future monies with CPRA. This backs up the claim that forested ridges and berms is the best cost-effective measure for our coast. In closing, numerous groups and the state have repeated that the Nbsd is a cornerstone project for coastal restoration, while being the most expensive project the state has seen using one-time monies. What we've seen is, having conversations with numerous coastal stakeholders and parish presidents is a long-term sustainable plan. Maximum benefits on Nbsd will max out at 30 years. After that, it will start to wash away. It is Lieutenant Governor's shared opinion with coastal scientists and engineers that this proposal is not the most cost-effective method to restore our coast while protecting communities from storm surge. He has continued communication with those in support of the Nbsd while standing in support of the seafood industry that stands to pay the full cost of this project. We thank you again for your time to present on tonight's topic, and look forward to supporting you all in any way we can. Thank you so much for your time.
We appreciate it, sir. Anybody with any questions, comments, concerns? Once again, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now we will relinquish some time to Mr. Bryn Haas, Executive Director of the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, for a short presentation as well. Mr. Haas, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. I'm Bryn Haas. I'm the Executive Director of the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, 150 Terrace Avenue, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70802. So just want to start off by thanking y'all for giving us a little time here today. Certainly appreciate that. Appreciate the comments of Mr. Entz and certainly the feelings of Lieutenant Governor Nungesser. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say on this single issue we couldn't disagree more. And I want to run through a few of the reasons why and talk with you a little bit about this project that is before us today. Also hope that y'all know that certainly we're not here asking for any action of the council today. Just want to provide as much information so that we can all be as informed as possible. So again, I work for the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority. We, hopefully you're familiar with the work that we do. The name is relatively self-explanatory. We're essentially charged with developing a plan to help restore our coast and protect our citizens from events like we experienced certainly last year with Hurricane Ida. And we've got that plan, and we've got a lot of good work that has been developed and implemented and put on the ground toward achieving that plan. It's called a Master Plan for Sustainable Coastal Louisiana. If implemented, it can reduce hurricane storm damages by about $150 billion over the 50-year evaluation period, and create nearly 1,000 acres of our coastal wetlands that would be lost otherwise. Much of that good work, of course, has occurred here in Lafourche Parish. Nearly $1 billion worth of investment. Time is of the essence. I'll not go through each of these, but you can see 6 projects are being designed right now. 8 in construction. Those range from the Morganza to the Gulf, massive hurricane risk reduction projects, to smaller risk reduction projects like Reach F North, part of the South Lafourche Levee District, and restoration projects as well. 7 have been completed in the recent past, just over the last 12 or 15 years or so. I should note that this total in these projects don't include the Bayou Lafourche pump station that you may have seen, and certainly you all are familiar with, that we're helping to support. That's not in Lafourche Parish per se, but obviously has a tremendous impact in terms of the bayou that runs right through the middle of the parish. Nor does this include a project like the Grand Bayou Pump Station that we're helping the parish support as well. Work very closely with President Csrs on that. We'll have an annual plan meeting, in fact, later this month on the 25th in Thibodaux that will outline some of those additional projects, but just wanted to point out that those aren't included in this list here and are certainly important projects of the region. We know they're priorities of the parish. I'd also point out, and Mr. Inch discussed the ridges and the ridges in Plaquemines Parish, and nobody in this room supports the creations of ridges across our coast more than Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority. We've built one. In fact, there were 7 that he listed. One of those have been built. 2 are under construction right now, the Spanish Pass project and the Bayou Grand Chenier project, and 1 at Grand Bayou. The Grand Bayou that's in Plaquemines Parish is in design right now. So 4 of those have either been built or are being built right now or are underway. So we certainly believe in those projects and believe they need to be done, but believe that they're not the only thing that we can do, right? We're at a point in our coast, and I think most of us realize this, that we can't leave anything on the table, or can't leave anything off the table, I should say. It's an all hands on deck. We've got to implement every option that we've got available to us to help restore our coast, protect our ecosystem, and ultimately protect our communities and our way of life. And indeed, one of the cornerstones of accomplishing that is the Mid-Barataria Sediment Diversion Project. So I'll talk with you just briefly about that. This is not a new concept. Reconnecting the river, or it's been known for many, many years that the river is in fact what built the land that we stand on, indeed the land we're standing on right here today. Right behind me is a historic course of the Mississippi River, as you all are well aware, Bayou Lafourche, of course. For the last 100 years or so, there's been a lot of studying being done. And I tend to cringe when I see this slide, and I know you all probably do too. Nobody wants to hear more studies, nor do I. Nonetheless, these have been completed over the last 100 years or so, and every one of these has identified the river as a tool that we've got to use to restore our coastal ecosystem. They all identify reconnecting the river with our coast to harness the processes that built coastal Louisiana in the first place to help rebuild coastal Louisiana. And all of us have recognized that rebuilding coastal Louisiana is something that needs to be done. It's a major problem, obviously, here in this parish and throughout our coast. So the Mid-Barataria Sediment Project is located here. It's just south of the Alliance Refinery, just north of the town of Ironton, on the west bank of the Mississippi River, on the east side of the Barataria Basin. You see the town of Lafitte there. The pin is sort of that rectangular water body you see in the middle of the slide. This is just a schematic of what that project may look like. It's essentially a gate in the Mississippi River levee that can be opened or closed to control the amount of water, sediment, and nutrients that would leave the river, which is at the bottom of your slide here, and enter the Barataria Basin to deposit those sediments, nourish wetlands that are existing today, and rebuild new wetlands as well. I would venture to say very confidently that no other project in the history of certainly of the state of Louisiana, certainly within the region, and perhaps in the country, has been as studied, as scrutinized, as evaluated, you name the adjective, as this project. And a big piece of that is the overall permitting process that we've got to go through when we're implementing projects like these with the Corps of Engineers. And that starts and ends with the development of an environmental impact statement and other permits. And so this is a timeline of that. You can see it goes back to the 2016 timeframe or so. We're over on the right-hand side of this slide now. A draft environmental impact statement has been developed by the Corps of Engineers and its partners that outlines all the benefits of this project, but it also doesn't shy away from the fact that there will be some negative impacts associated with this project. And those are outlined in the EIS, and it goes into ways in which CPRA and our partners can mitigate some of those negative impacts. These are some of the factors that have been evaluated. Everything from noise to navigation you see listed there. These are not all of the factors that have been evaluated as part of the EIS, and you can see some of the important ones there. Of course, they're all important, but some of the ones that we get the most questions about and that they're the most interested in highlighted there. Threatened and endangered species, water quality, fish, of course, are hugely important, essential fish habitat, marine mammals, as was discussed earlier by Mr. Enns. So where are we now? We're in a pretty critical part of this overall process. A draft EIS was developed. Public has had a chance to take a look at that, evaluate essentially what it says about benefits and impacts and what the project can deliver. And the Corps is now reviewing those comments, asking us sort of what we're going to do about them, essentially, as the agency that would implement this project, ultimately to develop a final environmental impact statement and mitigation plan, and then a record of decision sometime likely in the fall of this year. So there are some real benefits to the project, and I'm going to speed through these slides, y'all, because I know you've got a full agenda and are probably ready to move on. But there are some real land building benefits associated with this project. So 17,000 acres, as Mr. Enns mentioned earlier, is what we predict the land building would be at year 30 or so. That does reduce a little bit in out years, but that assumes that nothing else occurs, and it also sort of assumes basically a worst case scenario in terms of the environment, sea level rise, on all that kind of thing. That's nothing to sneeze at. If you think about what we've done to date, basically all we've done to restore our coast, not that it's a bad thing, is dredge, right? Dredging is great. Nobody has dredged more in the state of Louisiana, maybe with the exception of the Corps of Engineers than the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority. What you see here outlined in red, superimposed on what land we think could be built by the diversion, is that yellow polygon there, and that's marsh that has been created. That's been dredged, sediment that's been dredged from the river over about a 10-year period. Cost about $130 million to dredge that. That's about 1,600 acres or so. So just to give you an idea of the cost involved there, the time involved there, and sort of looking at the scale of what was built, you can see how that compares to what a diversion might deliver. I should point out, again, we've not... Dredging has been a primary focus, right, of CPRA to date, and again, rightly so. We've dredged about 150 million cubic yards of sediment to build barrier islands, ridges, marshes like you see right here to date. We're breaking ground this year on projects that will dredge about half that much over the life of those projects. So in terms of implementing projects, getting them on the ground, ramping up our activity, and increasing the scale and impact of those projects, we're really in what I would call a golden age of dredging for CPRA. So we've dredged about 150 million cubic yards essentially since we were formed as an agency. Again, this year the projects we'll begin constructing will dredge about 75 million cubic yards of sediment. So we're not slowing down. We're committed to doing that. It's a hugely important piece of the puzzle here. But it can't be the only thing that we do to try to restore as much of the coast as we would like. There's some real economic impacts in terms of the investment that might be made. We are talking about an expensive project, about a $2 billion project here, but you can see some of the jobs that might be created and the increase in sales, household earnings, and regional product in this region as well. There are other benefits. Again, I'll not go through all of these, but as you might imagine, things that generally like fresher conditions do well: bass, redfish, pogies, bay anchovies, white shrimp, blue crabs, alligators, green-winged teal, mottled ducks, and then all the things associated with that. There are also real benefits that you don't see on maps like the one I just showed you. So the amount of submerged aquatic vegetation, which is, as you all are well aware, is just as important as some of the marshes that we have. That grass in those ponds that hold ducks, that hold shrimp, that hold crabs, and provide areas for those organisms to feed and grow up. Will benefit as well, in addition to just shallow water bottoms that can do the same thing. And all of that productivity, all of that energy that will be increased ultimately translates to the nearshore Gulf of Mexico and supports things like marine mammals that we've talked about, supports red snapper, supports things like pelagic fish, wahoo, and so forth. So there's a tremendous benefit there. I mentioned that we have not shied away from impacts, and there are some. You see those identified here, and these are what are identified in the environmental impact statement as well. So for some of the communities that are near the diversion that are outside of flood protection, there will be some increases in tidal flooding. There are negative impacts to brown shrimp and oysters, and then also to dolphins. And I'll talk a little bit about what's being done there. So these are the communities that we're talking about. Again, they are outside. They're not behind protection levees, so they're experiencing significant flooding as we sit here today. In fact, we were in Plaquemines Parish talking with many of the members of these communities today about ways that we can assist those communities, both in terms of the reality that they're facing today, which is increasing depth and duration of flooding just from south winds and normal tides, just like folks in Lafourche Parish are facing, but also in terms of impacts that might be exacerbated if the project is put in place. And so those have been some good discussions, and we've got plans to address that. Primarily, it's elevation, right? As your own Mr. Wendell Curall likes to say, the salvation to inundation is elevation, right? And so it's about getting structures, infrastructure, homes, and so forth up and out of harm's way. In terms of decrease, I should say, survival rate for dolphins, we've got a plan for that. And we've worked with our Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and with the National Marine Fisheries Service, who's the federal agency responsible for addressing that resource and developing a plan to mitigate for those impacts. Same thing with brown shrimp and oyster populations. You can see some of those features and factors listed there. I've talked a little bit already about the community outreach that has been done in Plaquemines Parish primarily, but you can just see some of the numbers here. Just know that a tremendous amount has been done. 258 respondents to a survey tool. We've met with over 303, or had 303 respondents to other public inquiries about what these communities want to see from us in light of potential impacts associated with this project. 10 community meetings, 2 rounds of surveys have been mailed, 18 total public outreach meetings, and so forth. And so this really kind of summarizes it. I'll not go through each of this, but we're really in a critical point right now as it relates to this project. Overwhelmingly, what we see in terms of polls and just talking with our communities and our stakeholders is that there's huge support for projects like these. Louisiana, as you all know, more than many places along our coast, is truly in an existential crisis. And it's because we're losing our coastal wetlands. We're losing our coast. And that exacerbates things like we experienced the last couple of hurricane seasons, and certainly last year in this parish is you all are quite familiar with. We're also losing the wetlands that support everything that we hold near and dear to our heart, right? No wetlands, no seafood. If there are no wetlands, there are no more marine mammals. There's no more pogies that feed those marine mammals. And we know we can't do this through dredging alone. We have got to find a more efficient, more long-term, more sustainable way to try to restore our coast. The best way that we believe to do that, of course, is by implementing these sediment diversions. So I think I've got one last slide, and I'll be done with this. I think it's important to note, and again, I'm really preaching to the choir here. Very few of us duck hunt where our parents and grandparents did. Very few of us fish where our parents and grandparents live. Many of us don't live where our parents and grandparents did. And that's not because the river's been connected to our coast. Everywhere we see the river connected to our coast, we see our coastal wetlands thriving and growing. Chafalaya Delta, Wax Lake Delta, south of Venice, all of the crevasses south of Venice. Where you punch a hole in that river levee, you see wetlands coming back. You see waterfowl, wildlife, and fish thriving. So this coast has changed and has been changing for 100 years, for longer than that really, since before we were here certainly. And it's going to change in the future. It's going to change whether we implement a project like this or we don't implement a project like this. So we have a choice before us. Can we manage that change for the most good, for the most people in coastal Louisiana, or do we sit back and allow that change to inflict its will on us? Our choice and our plan is to manage that change, as I said, for the most good, for the most people in coastal Louisiana, and that's why we're proposing to implement this project. So thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hoss. Anybody with any questions? Mr. Adams?
Yeah, so you're gonna be getting into the river and you're gonna come through Plaquemines Parish, right?
Yes, sir.
You're not gonna pump anything down through Lafourche, the Bayou Lafourche, I mean? Or I knew you said something about a pump in Bayou Lafourche.
Yeah, that's a separate project that we've been working with the Bayou Lafourche Freshwater District on to increase the pump
So
capacity.
y'all gonna come through like Lake Salvador from the river that way down into the?
The Bayou Lafourche project would be in.
No, the other one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I can pull the map back up, but it's around the town of Ironton, south of Alliance, around Myrtle Grove, if you know where that is, on the west side of the Mississippi River.
So
it's on
where would the lieutenant governor's one come at? Where would they cut through?
I don't know, I can't speak for the
I'm
lieutenant
sorry, I
governor.
want to ask
Yeah.
him, but
Yeah.
he took off before I could.
I-
So where would y'all take the diversion from? What parish, like? Yeah, like, because I seen one of the diversions you already did is like in St. James, St. Charles. Where would this one come through? His is down in Plaquemine Parish. Where would yours come from? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I was just wondering.
The one in St. Charles is the one that we worked with the Corps of Engineers on. That's the Davis Pond diversion.
Yeah, I seen that one, yeah.
And it does.
Well,
it's north
I was wondering because the one I was looking at was somebody was showing me a diversion coming through the Lake des Allemands, coming that way to Lake Salvador. Yeah,
Yes.
because, well, I'm looking at getting some settlement in Lake des Allemands because we lost a ton of land, so that's why I was trying to figure out which one of y'all were coming through there, because that's a better choice.
So there have been some proposals to reconnect the river just north of Lake des Allemands. We don't currently have a project plan there.
Okay, because I mean,
you
a
may
lot of land was lost, so with the
Yeah.
settlement, we could build some back. So I'm just trying to figure out which one's better for my community. that's
You
all.
may be thinking of AMA, the AMA diversion, that would be moved upriver of Davis Pond essentially. Those things are sort of in the concept level right now, though they're not as far along as.
Okay, I was
right
just
there.
wondering which was better for me. You good, thank you.
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lorraine?
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming, and thank the other gentleman for coming too. How long have you been with CPRA?
About 18 years.
Okay. So how long do you think this is gonna go on for? I know they got some people behind you, and they got some people behind the other group. So how long you really think this is gonna go on for before something actually gets done? Because all I hear is studies, and you said that if we could get all the money that we spend on studies, the project would have been done. But that's not the way it works. So that's my question. Maybe you can't answer it, I don't know.
No, it's a,
I know you got pro and cons on both sides, but how long you think this is gonna go on for? Because I've been watching this for a long time.
I certainly sympathize, I guess, with your sentiment, and yes, it's time to do something, right? And so what you saw and what I presented there is that we hope to have a record of decision by the fall of this year. Conceivably, we could begin construction before the end of this year.
So you were familiar with the long-distance settlement pipeline project in 2012?
Yes, sir,
And you know what happened to us, huh?
I do.
They were supposed to come all the way to La Rose against the levees, and they stopped at Barataria. And we put up $1 million for that. And that stayed. And so did Plaquemine, and so did Jefferson. So the way I look at all this is Lafourche and Grand Isle is the Barry Islands for St. Charles, Jefferson, and probably Orleans and some of Plaquemines. We're the Barry Islands.
Yes, sir.
All our Barry Islands are basically gone. And I just don't understand why some of these Corps of Engineers, whoever, doesn't believe in rocks. Every time you talk about rocks, it's like they fade away. They believe in sand or whatever. So I really don't know what's gonna happen here. And it's hard to get everybody on board. There's no way. Just like somebody running for office, you can't get all the votes. But you're gonna have pros and cons. And it's gonna be battled again. But I wanna say something. When this was going on, this $1 million, guess who was the leader of Coastal Zone? Mr. Chasson. He was in charge of that at the time, and then he worked his way up, became administrator, and now he's parish president. So you never know what can happen in this world. You know, that's a compliment. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine.
Yes.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councilman Adams' point, you know, when we look at areas like the Zalmans, when we look at the areas outside of Wendell's system in DeLynn and Daniels districts, we've begun working with Brand, Chairman Klein with CPR to try to figure out how do we take this sediment that we know washed away, that either washed into Lake des Allemands, into Little Lake, into Catfish Lake, and how do we put that stuff back? So while those typically probably won't be diversion-related projects, hopeful in the coming months, we can sort some of that out, whether it comes through WRDA funding or whether it's Hurricane Ida relief funding or somewhere, that we can kind of put that marsh back up against the levee system so we have some sort of protection, knowing that if we ever catch another storm like Ida, we have nothing left basically out there to protect the levee systems from that storm surge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. President, thank you, Mr. Hawes.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving into item G, legal advisory report. We do not have one of those tonight. Item H, engineers and architects reports. Saw a few engineers. Want to flip a coin? Here he comes. Just remember, state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
John Plaisance with the GIS Engineering, 16878 West Main Street in Cutoff. We have several projects to address for y'all tonight. Oh, I can do this, huh, Robbie? We have several projects in the construction. Actually, the drainage improvements along West 55th Street is substantially complete. 45-day lien period ends this week. They'll be eligible for their retainage, but again, this project is complete. At the Cypriam pump station, we have completed phase 1 on the project. That was actually completed back in November. We are still waiting for some equipment on phase 2 that we do not anticipate in until June or July. Some of them have arrived. The gearheads are at the pump manufacturer facility. It's being tested, but we don't expect them on site until mid-June of this year. Once it gets here, it's only going to take like 30 days to install, but it's going to be a while before it gets here. Several projects in design. The Butch Hill Pump Station, which is something in the central Lafourche area. We've submitted the study and report phase for review. The geotechnical work has been done, and we have begun the preliminary design phase on that project. We are doing some bridge inspections for y'all, the Sanchez Bridge over Grand Bayou. We've done, again, the preliminary design phase. We'll be doing a site visit for a final field check this week, and we should have the final plans done hopefully next week for y'all to do that work on that for that bridge. We've started the Valentine Pontoon Bridge rehab project. We finished the inspection, the surveying, the geotech. We have met with members of our internal permitting team to get the list of permits that were required for construction, and we've been coordinating with DOTD for their help and assistance. The Grand Bayou Freshwater Reintroduction Project, we are reviewing the hydraulic modeling report. You can see one of the slides from that report, which will reduce the projected reduction in salinity on the west bank of Bayou Lafourche. Our phase 2 report is being finalized and should be delivered this week or next. We had to do some emergency survey work because Ida dumped a whole bunch of material into the canals and channels in that area. So we had to determine how much of it was done, and we've delivered that to the parish. And I believe this is finally the Eunice Alamo pump station at the end of Hamilton Street in LaRose. The preliminary design is complete. We'll be meeting with staff tomorrow to decide how to move forward on this project. That's it.
Anybody with any questions for Mr. John? Yes, sir.
So we just heard all these presentations about mitigating the impacts. I'm guessing that, and I don't know to what degree CPRE is involved, but the the salinity reduction project off of Grand Bayou that you mentioned. CPRE, I'm guessing, is heavily involved in that, and they're going to be assisting with mitigating all the same issues that were mentioned here, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they are. So part of the project is funded by CPRA. A lot of it is funded by post-BP all spill dollars. But because it's in theory a diversion, we're pulling water out of the GIWW. Instead of letting it gravity flow, we're actually going to pump it to get some better regimes, which is why you see that salinity level drop. But we're going to have to go through all the same environmental assessment stuff that they had to go through with their diversions. There's still some moisture leases out in Catchfish Lake that we may have to attend to think a lot of those things have been bought up due to other coastal projects and some other things, but we're gonna have to contend with some of the same stuff.
Yeah, because I can see significant mitigation to brown shrimp. I mean, you're talking about a lot of issues, I'm guessing, so, good, thank you.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Otan. Mr. President, anybody else with anything for Mr. John? Appreciate it, sir.
Thank y'all.
Any other engineers, architects? Welcome, sir. Just please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Jack Plaisance with T. Baker Smith, 152 Seville Lane, La Rose. East side drainage is a project in District 8 and 9 in the Galliano cutoff area. I've reported on this before. We've made good progress in the last couple of months, probably closer to 45% complete now, projected to finish early in August. I have a few photograph slides to show you. The culvert installation is about 40% complete, clearing and grubbing about 90%, and we began the drainage excavation work in December, and now working on the Danos lateral moving south. So I think I can do a pointer here, maybe not. This is just an overall site plan. The lateral on the left side, which would be north, is the Danos lateral. So the ditch excavation began on the northern end of the 20 Orphan Canal and is working south. Here's a few photographs. Back in December, early clearing and grubbing the 20 Orphan near East 52nd Street. That'd be looking north. The right side photograph is right off of East 44th, which is basically the beginning of the 20 Orphan Canal, the upper limit of the 20 Orphan Canal. This is the Danos lateral that I had mentioned. This is the first lateral ditch that takes the water to the 40 Orphan Canal basin. You can see that they're doing excavation here, cleaning the ditch. Later in December, this is near East 48th and East 51st. Just photographs showing the completed work on the 20 Orphan Canal. On the right side, you can see that some of the culverts were in good condition. We left those in. Those are access points for landowners, and in some cases, we're adding an extra pipe to increase the flow. Here we are a little further down the reach near 51st and 53rd, and that again is the 20 Orphan Canal, more or less in its completed state. And that would conclude my photograph presentation. If there's any questions.
Anybody with anything for Mr. Jack? Mr. Lorraine, you have something?
I'm working again.
Your voice is working.
Okay. On the lateral canals, Jack, how many of those, that's from the 20s to the 40s, right?
Yeah, I can back up and show you, Mr. Daniel.
They had a few before, right? 3 or 4?
I believe early on there were more. So you have the Danos, 1, Dory, 2, Valerie, 3, and there's a 4th outfall canal near Plaisance, near 74th Street, I want to say.
Okay.
4 outfalls.
And how high did you come up to east what? The street, 40?
The highest, the upper limit of the 20 Orphan is near East 44th. It actually is right up against East 44th Street. And the southern limit of the 20 Orphan Canal is at 95th. Brenton Canal, 95th Street.
Brenton Canal, yeah. Yeah, that's about solid Fooch going to the country club. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Engineers, architects? All right, moving right along. Item number I, public wishing to address the council, public hearings, agenda items, etc. Ms. Carleen.
Terry and Kim Hoffpower, if you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
Kim Hoffpower, 117 Bavin Street, Houma, Louisiana.
I'm Terry Hoffpower.
same address. Oh, okay, I need to talk to y'all about the drainage on, Babin Street, Lower Bayou Blue. We have none. The only drainage that we have there is coming from the right side of, Babin Street, across the road into my property, and then trickling out the back. So there's no drainage that you can actually get rid of the water. It just gotta go down in a day or two. And it's a real problem, because, the problem caused my house to flood 3 times, and my front house to flood once. So it's to us, it's a severe problem. And we're the people that get flooded. We're the outlet for the water, for some reason. So that's the way it ended up. 35 years ago when we moved there, we didn't have that problem. It's just everything started going, everything started coming across the property. We had the parish built us a nice blacktop road. The water used to come over that road, get in the ditches and drain to the back. Now it comes over the road and it stays in the yard because it don't drain to the back anymore. I don't know why. So, man, I need help. We need help. You know, that's all we're asking.
Mr. Hoffpauir, I spoke to both you and your wife last week. I am your councilman in that area.
Yes, sir.
I did a little research after I got off the phone with you. We're not far along in it, but I did find out what the issue was. And I'm going to work with the parish administration and the Department of Public Works director to see if we can get you guys some relief back there. Several years ago, the water used to drain to the front. When they did some work back there, I don't know if it was blacktopping the street or doing some drainage work, they changed everything to drain to the back. So Babin and Parkwood both drain to the back. It goes through a gentleman's property named Mr. Babin, who's actually culverted part of the way, and it's an open ditch for a small section. But from what I'm being told, once it gets through the parish culvert and the parish right-of-way, there's nowhere for it to drain. It does not drain into a ditch. It does not drain into a body of water. The ditch just keeps getting shallower and shallower, and it opens up into wetlands, which does not,
I know where it drains at.
What does not promote good drainage.
Yeah.
So I have spoken to the supervisor at the Bayou Blue Barn. Unfortunately, our Public Works Director is not able to join us tonight. He is ill. I plan to get with him to find out, since it does drain into some wetlands, there's some mitigation, there's some different things. So I will get with parish administration now that we've followed the channels and the avenues down and determine where it seems to be a problem. So I will get in touch with you guys in the very near future once I'm able to talk to those fellas and make sure that we have a plan and see exactly what it is we can do to try to get more of that water to continuously flow other than just sit there to be absorbed. So hopefully that'll give you guys some relief in the future, and we'll see exactly what needs to be done and try to start working on that and getting that ball rolling to ease some of that water that just sits there for days and days and days waiting to be absorbed.
Yes, sir.
All right?
Thank you very much.
We thank you guys for coming. The public really needs to get involved when something like that is wrong, but you guys made some calls ahead of time and we're able to start working on it. So thank you for coming and thank you for your input, and I will be in touch with you guys over the next couple weeks once we're able to determine what we can do immediately and what we can do in the future moving forward.
Appreciate you, sir.
You guys have a
very
good
much,
evening.
Council.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank
Carlene?
Ms. Annette Bourgeois, if you come to the podium, Ms. Annette, state your name and address for the record, and please remember you have 3 minutes.
My name's Annette Bourgeois. I live at 106 Bourgeois Street, Raceland, Louisiana, 70394. The reason I'm here this evening is concerning Hurricane Ida. I have a niece and her family that her house was destroyed. The whole roof was pulled off of her house during the hurricane. She lives on Social Security, $800 a month. Her husband's a crab fisherman. He's lost all his crab traps in the storm. He has not worked since the hurricane. She has a 17-year-old son that's living at home. What happened is The week after the storm, some representatives from FEMA came to her home, told her not to put the electricity on because everything in the home was wet, including wiring, and it would be a hazard. And then, of course, they were concerned her house was totaled. So with that said, they have been living in a home with no electricity, mold and mildew, and everything else for over 4 months. I cannot tell you the countless trips back and forth to meet with FEMA. We have come so many times, spent so many hours, brought so many documents, and still have not gotten anything. Part of this that happened also is they finally said that she qualified for a mobile home camper after 4 months. So I brought them the paper to tell them where to deliver it, and we were under the impression she'd have a motorhome, for 3 adults, and they're obese people. This Thursday, they delivered to her a trailer less than maybe 15 feet long that they can't even fit in. They can't even fit in the bathroom. These people have been living in inhumane situations. If any of you own an animal, if you'd be treating your animal like that, you'd probably be in jail right now for that to happen. I don't know where to turn. We don't know what else to do. We don't know if it's going to take a lawyer, but she has no money. I mean, I don't know who can fix it, because it's not just them that has the problem, I can promise you that. And they're illiterate, they're not educated. It's very, very difficult for them. In fact, her son, as we speak, is probably going to fail out of school because they have no electricity, they have no internet, so he cannot do any homework, no schoolwork, no nothing. So it's a very bad, grave situation for them. And I've called everybody I can think of and can't get any help, so I'm hoping possibly y'all can fix it. Thank you.
Ms. Bourgeois, if you would write your name and number, give it to President Chasson, and I'll pick it up. Either myself or Mr. Araby is the councilman in that area. We'll determine exactly what it is, and I will call you back with some information, some numbers you can call to either request a bigger trailer, or we can try to get to the bottom of what's going on with it.
Well, we've done that to no avail.
Hold on, Mr. Chasson has something to ask.
So Ms. Bourgeois, just do me a favor, just write down her address for me. What we typically do when we get, I probably get 5 or 10 of these a day, right? So we have 2 people embedded with us from FEMA who do nothing but housing issues for us. So typically the easiest thing to do is we take their name and address. Because of their privacy rules, we can't interact. We can't look at their system. But Wade and Scott do a pretty good job of typically within a few days telling me exactly what the issues are, why they did not either qualify for a FEMA trailer, maybe didn't. But hold on, whether maybe the FEMA mobile home unit wouldn't fit because of space requirements, or which is might be why they got an RV unit. In some cases, the state or FEMA doesn't know. Look, if I requested a FEMA unit, they might send me a travel trailer too. I'm a big boy, right? They don't know that about these people. They see on the paperwork it's a family of 3. A family of 3 can fit in a 15, 17-foot Jayco unit in their minds all day long, right? Jim, I'll take her address. We'll send it to Wade. I'll copy you and Terry on the email so you see it in case we get a response. But we'll try to figure out why. In some cases, if it's a state unit that showed up first, they're meant to be a bridge between no housing or improper housing to a FEMA unit can get there. If it's truly a FEMA trailer, we may be able to get it swapped out. I know the state does not swap out trailers once they hit the site. They have a very strict policy about that. But we'll bird dog it.
Okay, Ms. Bourgeois.
I told them at the time that the FEMA trailer would not work because they just purchased a lot, put the trailer on, so that's not an issue. They just have to get water installed, sewage installed, everything costs them $4,000 to get ready for this trailer, so that's not.
Right. Well, Mr. Chasson.
They did not want this trailer on their lot. They kept harassing him, saying they had to put it on a trailer park down the bayou and pay $500 a month. They called him every day and told him. This has been going on for 4 months. This family can't go in.
Okay. Hopefully, Mr. Chasson can send it up tomorrow, and we'll see. Thank you, Ms. Bourgeois. Ms. Carlene?
Mr. Farrell Trahan. Come to the podium, Mr. Trahan, state your name and address for the record. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Farrell Trahan, formerly of 120 West 85th Street, now at 173 West 75th Street cutoff. First, I'd like to mention 3 quick things: home, lighting, and debris. A lot of people I talk to say that's the main 3 things. Let's get families back in their homes, 1 family per home like it was, as quick as possible. Second, let's get some lighting for safety as quick as possible. And the third one, the debris pickup for, again, safety as much as possible. The 4-lane highway, we discussed it at the last meeting in December. They're still dumping there. Nothing's been done about it. If you'll need a can of spray paint, I got a can in my truck. I'll happily donate it to the parish, but these people are dumping not knowing they're dumping illegal. We have social media. I'm sure the council has somebody or the parish has somebody in charge of social media. Put it on the government site, put it on Facebook, put it out on the paper, radio, so it will stop, please. And then the 5th and final thing I wanted to discuss, at the last meeting, Mr. Adams made a comment that we were basically to learn how to take care of ourselves, I believe was the wording. Well, sir, for the first 5 weeks after the hurricane, every other day I was here with 900 gallons of fuel that I sold at the same exact price I paid for it in Abbeville. I hauled water, I hauled diapers, I hauled a lot of stuff. So yes, we do know how to take care of ourselves, but y'all are the leaders of this parish. And for you to insinuate that I need to take care of myself, I was highly offended when, if you're in a war and you're a Navy SEAL and you left on a beach and you call for help and your general tells you, learn how to take care of yourself. Think about it. Thank you.
Mr. Trahan, thank you for coming. The 3 things that you just mentioned, we have had some email communication back and forth to work on some of the lighting issues. I know debris pickup is still an ongoing thing down there. As far as the trash being dumped, I know the parish has advertised it. The sheriff's office has been on it. The DA's behind it with, enforcing some of these charges of trespassing, littering, public dumping. But the public needs to know when they see a trailer out there dumping roof shingles, not to post it on Facebook, oh, they're dumping again. Call the sheriff's office. It's hard for them to enforce.
People don't know to call the sheriff's office if y'all don't advertise it. And like I said,
okay.
The 4-lane, the Côte Blanche connection, the South Lafourche connection.
We'll make sure it's advertised again, but Mr. Trahan, if it's not your property, you can't dump on it.
I understand that.
So that's the rule of thumb for people. If you see somebody dumping, even if it's on the side of a bridge, on the side of a road, if it's not yours, don't dump on it.
Correct.
So make those calls. Let's get the sheriff's office involved, and let's start taking back our parish.
Which, Mr. Chairman, grant you weren't at the last meeting that I spoke at. And all I'm asking for is to put some signs out. Even if you spray paint plywood, it's in the pile, just to let these people know, because a lot of these people are from out of town, out of state, and they're trying to do their best, okay? There is no public dumping for public itself without a heavy cost.
Right.
And what I'm calling heavy, 2.5 tons, cost me $184. And what these roofers and all are doing, especially the roofers, they have nowhere else to dump. So what they're doing, they're going in the middle of the night. But if you put a sign, violators will be prosecuted to the fullest extent, it'll stop a lot of it. I can promise you that, especially if you put down that it's a federal offense.
We'll take note to that. I mean, I've put up signs in my area that have been stolen. I've had the fire chief go around catching people. They know it's illegal. They make up stories. But we'll see if there's anything we can do on our end to.
And I wouldn't mind putting it myself. I just don't want to get stopped for vandalism, because right now everything's going on.
All right, Mr. Trahan, thank you
Thank
for coming
you.
and sharing that with us again, and we'll look into it. Thank you, sir. Ms. Carleen. All right, that being the last one, before we get into the meat potatoes, everybody's good? Anybody needs a break? Motion by Mr. Oten, second by Mr. Adams. All in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 We'll take a 5-minute recess. To resume, a second by Mr. Adams. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Got 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Mr. Melvin, correct?
8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent.
Right.
That being Mr. Melvin.
8 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Okay, item number J, public hearing and ordinance for ratification. Can I get a motion to open those ordinances? Motion by Mr. Oten, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Okay, item number 7, ordinance authorizing the parish of Lafourche, State of Louisiana, proceed with not to exceed $11 million financing through Louisiana Local Government, Environmental Facilities, and Community Development Authority, authorizing and ratifying the parish's request of the Louisiana Local Government, Environmental Facilities, and Community Development Authority to issue its revenue bonds, authorizing the borrowing by parish of the proceeds from the sale thereof to finance the demolition and certain damaged properties and repairs, reconstruction, and renovation of other properties, and providing for the repayment of and security therefore, approving and ratifying the terms of the sale of the bonds, authorizing the form and execution of the loan agreement, authorizing the form and execution of agreement for the purchase of the bonds and ancillary financing documents, and otherwise providing with respect thereto. By Mr. Oten, can I get a second? Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? Public one time. All right, Mr. Block?
Well, I was just going to say, if you don't mind,
Can you just please state your name? There we go.
5 Canal Boulevard, Thibodeau, Louisiana. And I'll mention, to save time, J7 and J8, which is the revenue anticipation bond, J8. The term sheets came in, and the rate on the 10-year recovery bond, $11 million, is 2.25%, and that's payable over 10 years. And on the 1-year bond, $1.8 million, Trustmark had the low bid on that, and it's 1.32%. So basically 2.25% and 1.32%. Any questions?
Mr. Oten?
I just was wondering, Mr. Block, what were we expecting? How does that fall in where we were expecting?
That's about what we were expecting and hoping for. Those are reasonably low rates, and rates are going up from everything we know.
Thank you, Mr. Block. Public twice. Public third time. Any discussion from the council? All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 8. Ordinance making certain findings with respect to and authorizing the parish of Foosh, State of Louisiana, to incur debt and issue a revenue anticipation note and the principal amount not to exceed $1,883,486.64, approving the form and authorizing the execution and delivery of the revenue anticipation note, authorizing the execution and delivery of other documents required in connection therein, and authorizing the officers of the parish to do all things necessary in conjunction with the issuance, sale, and delivery of the revenue anticipation note. By Mr. Oten. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Adams.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have an amendment.
Okay.
Can I read it real quick?
Certainly.
Yeah, so this is an amendment to fill in the lender information of Section 4 as Trustmark National Bank, Jackson, Mississippi, and remove Louisiana, and also to change the title of Exhibit B from term sheet to commitment letter and add the commitment letter as Exhibit B.
All righty, sir. Amendment from the floor by Mr. Oten. Can I get a second on the amendment? Second by Mr. Adams. This is on the amendment from the floor. Public once, public twice, public 3 times. Any discussion by the council? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Mr. Melvin. Okay, back to item number 8. We have a motion by Mr. Otan, a second by Mr. Adams. Public comment on item 8. Public once, public twice, public 3 times. Any discussion from the council? All right, Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is that this is money that we're borrowing, $1,883,486.64. And you plan to pay it back. This is what kind of scares me a little bit. You plan to pay it back for the purpose of paying current operations, that's what you need it for, in anticipation of general fund revenues received in the next fiscal year due to delays caused by Hurricane Ida. So what would happen if you borrow this and you don't have anything to pay it back with?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President?
So Daniel, what we did was,
I'm gonna vote for it, but I just want you to clarify it.
yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, what we thought was that because the assessor had to reassess the whole parish. We
Right.
knew instead of getting taxes right now like we should, we're gonna get something June or July, right?
Right.
So we said, in case we get in a bind and we gotta pay operations costs, this is how much we think we would need. So if the taxes come in early and we don't need it, we draw it down and we pay it right back. But when we actually get the ad valorem taxes in June or July, hopefully before, that's what we're gonna use to pay this back. So there's no risk of not getting the money back to pay it back. We're gonna get the tax money. It's gonna come in when the tax bills go out. This is just to cover that shortfall in that gap of whatever that first 6 months would look like.
Right, I understand where you're coming from now, but when I read that, it kind of scared me a little bit. But what would you say the collection is gonna be? I know y'all said y'all did the budget for 25%, but after what I see with my own 2 eyes riding through the whole area, I would say it's gonna be closer to 50%.
No, believe it or not, I bet you we fall somewhere between 10 and 25%.
Okay, we're gonna remember that.
Look, $100 on the table.
I can
Let's
take
do
your
it.
word sometime, but not all the time.
No, but I think, look, talking to people, you know, the assessor sent out the revised tax notices or the estimations. Everybody probably should have gotten theirs the last week or so. If not, it's coming. I think in the people we've talked to around the office, family and friends, it seems to be, you know, mine was 25% of the value of my house she reduced it by. So I think we're going to be overall somewhere between 10 and 25%. We reduced the budget by 25% to be safe. So hopefully, let's pray it comes in around 10%. We got an extra 15% to play with.
With the scare that I have, I see places demolished that's not coming back. I know for a fact that they're not coming back. You take like Briscoe, they didn't fly out anything last year. That's millions of dollars that you're not gonna get anything there. And Leeville, you know, we talk about Leeville a lot. You got Griffins, they're not coming back. You got Todd, he ain't coming back. In Leeville, from the bridge to the boat launch, there were 17 businesses. You know what's coming back? 3. That's just there. That's not counting elsewhere. So, I mean, I'm gonna vote for it. I was just kind of leery when I saw that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? All right, item number 8, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number K, proposed ordinances. Okay, the ordinance as amended. 8 yeas, 0 nays. Oh, we did already.
Yeah, they voted on the amendment, not the ordinance.
As amended. 8. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Adams, close public hearing. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number K, proposed ordinances. Ms. Chasson, will you do the honors?
9, proposed ordinance establishing a 4-way stop at the intersection of Park Drive and Easy Drive, Thibodaux, Louisiana, Ward 1, District 3, Parish of Lafourche, State of Louisiana, installing the necessary 2 additional stop signs and providing penalties for the violation thereof. Michael Grohl. Proposed ordinance accepting the subdivision known as Cane Ridge Phase 1 into the parish system. Michael Grohl for administration. 11, proposed ordinance approving a lease agreement between Alain LeBreton Company, LLC, and the parish of Lafourche for leasing property of placement of communication antennas and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Mr. Lorraine for the administration. Proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 6574 that adopted the 2022 operations and maintenance budget and capital outlay budget for the Lafourche Parish Council, as well as setting the salaries of unclassified employees as provided for by Article 5 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Mr. Jerry Jones for administration.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to item L, resolutions. Item number 13, resolution requesting Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, LADOTD, to install a full traffic light at the intersection of US 90 at LA 182, mile marker 227.3 to 229.3, Raceland, Louisiana, Parish of Lafourche, State, of Louisiana, by Mr. Araby, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 1 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Melvin. What did I say? Oh, okay. Item number 14, resolution appointing 1 member to Lafourche Parish Communication District Board. Mr. Araby, who do you have? Mr. Claude Richardale, can I get a second? Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would just like to thank Jason as we move forward to vote Jason for applying for this position. Mr. Claude has been interested in serving on a board for quite some time and has been waiting for a vacancy on this particular board, so no disrespect to Jason, and I thank him for stepping up and offering his services.
Thank you, Mr. Otan. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. All right. Passes with 7 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. And the nay being Mr. Adams. Okay, item number 15. We are going to defer that to the next meeting. Item 16, resolution appointing 1 member to the Coastal Zone Management Advisory Committee. Mr. Grow, do you have Mr. Grow?
Mr. Glenn Grow.
Mr. Glenn Grow. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 17, resolution reappointing 1 member to the Lafourche Parish Communication District Board. Mr. Otan, who do you have, Mr. Otan?
Ms. Zena Sampe has reapplied.
Ms. Zena Sampe, can I get a second? Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item 18, resolution reappointing 1 member to the Fire Protection District Number 2 Board. Mr. Araby, who do you have, Mr. Araby? Todd Abear. Can I get a second from Mr. Abear? Second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 19, resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Lafourche Parish Government and South Central Planning and Development Commission, SCPDC, for the fiscal year 2021-22 membership dues, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relative documents by Mr. Grow, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 20, resolution appointing change order number 1 from 4A Contracting Group LLC for the project titled Lockport Branch Library Entryway Project, increasing the contracted price by $93,045.83 and adding 14 additional days to the contract time, and authorizing the parish president to execute and administer said change order and any and all relevant documents by Mr. Adams. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by...
Wait, I gotta discuss, my light don't wanna come on.
All right, Mr. Lorraine, I'm sorry, go ahead. Is your microphone on?
Hello?
All right, there you go.
I don't know what's wrong with it, but, anyway, the library board has only met once since Hurricane Ida in 4 months. And if you look at this, the change order is for $93,000. The library board of control president accepted this emergency project change order via phone call on December 13th. You can't do that on the phone. I promise you. You can't do it on the phone. Let's get it right. call a library board meeting, get the members present, pass it, come to the council, and we'll pass it. I'm telling you, you cannot do this on the phone. And the president, the director of the library board, if you look at their bylaws, the most she could spend on her own is $5,000. That's $93,000. She doesn't really have that authority. So to be safe, I'm telling you, take this to the DA and see if you could do this. If you could do this, and they tell you it's legal, I'll support it. But I can tell you right now, you can't do it on the phone. There's no way. You can't. And that's what was done. And that's what's going to tell me to vote no if y'all go ahead and go with it. But it ain't right. Call a meeting, get your people there, get it done, and come to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. President Chasson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Lorraine probably remembers this. He was on the council when it happened. The council stripped the fiduciary responsibilities away from the library board. So it doesn't matter if or how or when the library board would ever approve this anyway. You guys have to approve the change order. The change order, the $93,000 was in the contingency of the budget. This was the unanimous agenda item that was that was thrown out at the first December meeting. Full disclosure, I've already signed the change order because it needed to be done. You can't hold up a project for something that's already in the budget to begin with, right? So I would just ask you guys to vote on it, approve it, let Benton, Forey Construction Group and those guys continue their work so we can get the library back up and running. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? All right, item number 20. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion passes with 7 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absence. The absence being Mr. Melvin, then 1 nay being Mr. Lorraine. Item number 21, resolution rescinding resolution number 21-333 that approved an interagency agreement between the Lafourche Parish School District and the Lafourche Parish Government Head Start for the purpose of coordinating efforts for the 2021 through 2024 school years to identify and serve children who are at risk for developmental delays and/or have exceptional needs, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relative documents by Ms. Chasson, second by Mr. Oten. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item 22, resolution approving an interagency agreement between the Lafourche Parish School District and Lafourche Parish Government Head Start to coordinate efforts for the 2021-2022 school year to identify and serve children who are at risk for developmental delays and/or have exceptional needs, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relative documents by Ms. Chasson, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you guys rescinded the one in the previous item because we had a little typo in the date. So it should read 2021-2022 school year instead of 2021-2024.
So
that's the only change.
Item 21.
Yes, sir.
Rescinded one, okay. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 23, resolution approving a rebate of sales and use tax on qualifying materials, machinery, and furniture and/or equipment from Lafourche Parish Government Solid Waste and Consolidated District A Road Tax totaling 1.7% for Performance Food Group Incorporated, Cairo, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Can I get somebody to move on my behalf? Moved by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Oten. Any discussion? Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed in the summer, I know we've talked about this before, we instituted the pilot agreement with Cairo to keep them here, built a nice or in the process of building a nice $25 million expansion in Via Blue instead of moving to a different parish. Part of that agreement was that we were going to rebate part of the sales tax from the ones that we had control over. So portion of Road A and solid waste. They are currently paying the sales tax on everything they're buying as part of the agreement. They have to compile all the receipts and then work with the school board sales tax office to get that rebate back at the end. So if you notice in here, I think we top out at about $435,000 is the max that we would repay them in sales tax for our portion. The school board by law can't do it, and I don't think the levy district opted in. But it was partially an ad valorem tax, so we wrote off the next 10 years of the gain on the new portion of the building, and then the rebate of this $400-something thousand.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
know,
President.
I want to recognize Mr. Chet Chesson from the Port Commission. Chet serves as the chairman of our Industrial Development Board who actually put together the framework for this. So on behalf of us, Chet, thank you for you and the IDB service and getting this done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Otan.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask you about the development groups. I'm assuming that they're, have been part of this, and, any others right on the horizon, similar issues?
I think we have a few. You know, with the airport access corridor being opened up with the new bridge, I think there's a huge opportunity in that industrial park, and Christie's begun some conversations with those. As well as, you know, Christie was on a webinar today, and we talked about it around lunch, about the retail outlook for next year. There's a lot of people looking to shift around, so I think you're gonna see some other opportunities. If we look at retail, we're talking, shut your ears, Daniel, mostly Thibodeau, because that's where your retail hub is for us. It's just the way it works out. But I do think there's some other opportunities on the horizon with some larger manufacturers that are looking for places, existing buildings that we already have that we can retrofit, and then just some open pieces of property. We had a great meeting with the group at Latour, which Trey Bookvault owns ESNH, is the owner of, about some opportunities they have and ways we can partner with them. So the IDB board, Christie's meeting or just met, and we're going to be talking to them about some of that stuff to be able to put together some frameworks. So when they're ready to pull a trigger, hopefully in the second quarter of 22, we have the ability to make some of that happen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anybody else? Mr. Lorraine.
So about how much money are we talking about? Just an estimate?
It's in the resolution, Daniel. I think we max out at about $435,000 between, and that's combined with solid waste and road aid. That's not each.
Because I could remember years ago, we did that for a company out of Foosh, both of them. Usually you do it for one, but this time it was the road sales tax and the garbage tax. Okay, I just think if we could help other ones.
Yep.
And you're doing this because they invested $25 million in the facility?
Yeah, they invest, so they were, little recap, I guess, for the public too. They were torn between expanding the facility in Bayou Blue or building a brand new facility in St. Charles Parish.
Because about 3 years ago, Briscoe put about 20 million of improvements. And didn't get that. But that's okay. We'll just keep our eyes open.
Thank you. All right, item number 23, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes with 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Oh, I'm sorry. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention being Mr. Grill, and 1 absence being Mr. Melvin. Was 7, huh? Yeah, 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention, Mr. Grill, 1 absence, Mr. Melvin. Okay, item number 24, resolution approving change order number 2 for the project titled Drainage Improvements along West 55th Street, adding 17 additional days to the contract time and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said change order and any and all relative documents by Ms. Chasson, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 25, resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between Lafourche Parish Government and Louisiana State Animal Response Team for assisting Lafourche Parish Government in the event of an emergency, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relative documents by Mr. Groh, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 26, resolution approving an addition change form to the agreement between the Foosh Parish Government and Nationwide Retirement Plans to administer the 457 Deferred Compensation Plan, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said addition change form and any and all relative documents by Mr. Groh, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 27, resolution approving a contract between Office of Public Health, Bureau of Community Preparedness, and Lafourche Parish Government for the fiscal year 2022 Cities Readiness Initiative, CRI, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said contract and any and all relative documents by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 28, resolution rescinding resolution number 21-357 that approved an agreement between Lafourche Parish government and Laris Insurance Agency LLC to provide commercial property, equipment, inland, marine, and boiler and machinery coverages as quoted, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relative documents by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you guys are sending this one, we did it right in the December meeting, the bond coverage, so we'd have coverage coming January 1st. But Mitch was able to negotiate with the help of Laris Insurance some better coverage, especially in a post-auto world. They were looking at our renewals and figuring out what we were going to be covered for. So kudos to Mitch and Savanier for working on that and help from Ross and Rudy over at Laris. So you guys are going to rescind the one we approved back in December, and then the next item is the new agreement with the bigger and better coverage.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 29, resolution approving an agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and Laris Insurance Agency LLC to provide commercial property, equipment, inland, marine, and boiler and machinery coverages as quoted, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement in all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? Go, Mr. Gross.
I should have asked you when the report came out last week. How many people, it was the lowest qualifying, we had like a committee, I know with the health insurance, y'all had staff that kind of got together, and, I mean, there's so many things and tricks in the insurance game, I understand. But how many people responded to the bid? Did we have a lot of interest, or? I know they've been having it for a while recently.
So we for this particular one, we didn't have the opportunity to do an RFQ for all of the insurance. So Laris was the broker that we continued to stay with. If we would change brokers, we would have to do an RFQ process like we did for our health insurance process. He did go out to market, however, and see what was available. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what you want to look at, our current carriers are going to be the same carriers that we're going to have going forward. There wasn't. I'm sorry?
They didn't drop us, but there was nobody else.
They didn't drop us, but where there was a big impact here in particular was that they'd originally quoted us only $10 million of coverage across the entire parish. Previously, we had $64 million of coverage. So what this particular resolution does allow us to buy 10X or an additional $10 million of coverage for a total of 20. And the biggest reason behind that is if you sit down and you do the mathematical calculation with FEMA was to only pay at the 75-25% rate. We want to have enough insurance to be able to make up that 25% of the total value of our buildings. Hence why we went after having $20 million of coverage for all the buildings, across all of the buildings in the parish.
Yeah,
each individual building.
It costs so much to rebuild and
correct.
So that's where the additional $10 million comes from?
Yes.
And that was recommended by them, I assume?
It was recommended by them, but we also talked to our financial advisor, and he had also recommended us that we follow that same process. And when we went back and we sat down and we were able to have some additional discussions in December, we were able to get a really good price on it. And that's why we decided to move forward. Otherwise, we'd have been underinsured with only $10 million. And right now, we're sitting at $34 million of damage across the parish.
Right now, we're sitting at?
Right now, our current forecast from our adjusters is $34 million.
Do you have a number that just, and it could be not exact, but I mean, just on this building, do you remember how much it was?
$5 million.
500,000?
$5 million.
$5 million?
Yes.
$5 million. Oh,
yes.
Wow. Jesus Christ. Holy smokes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Grove. Mr. Orgeron, any other discussion on item 29? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 30, resolution approving amendment number 1 to the ongoing investment consulting agreement between the Lafourche Parish Government and Gallagher Fiduciary Advisors LLC to administer the Parish 457B Deferred Compensation Plan and provide investment and retirement plan consulting services, and authorizing the Parish President to sign, execute, and administer said amendment and any and all relative documents by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 31, resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the LSU Ag Center and Lafourche Parish government to support and administer Louisiana cooperative units off campus and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relative documents by Mr. Araby, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item 31 passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 32, resolution approving an agreement between the Lafourche Parish government and Avantax to administer the parish 457 plan and provide investment and retirement plan consulting services and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and in all relative documents by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion on item number 32, Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this one goes along with item 26 and 30. Last year when we went to nationwide, we used Gallagher to handle some of the manipulation. So if an employee needed help moving money around or plan selections, we used them. It was a lot of phone calls. A lot of it was because of COVID, but the employees have asked that we get more of a hands-on person or a company that could come in, literally sit on with them from across the desk, work on that one-on-one. So we're bringing in Mr. Sean Harrison, who I know is in the back, to help us do that. So 26 and 30 kind of amended the agreements with Nationwide. We're going to take that portion out of the benefit package that they do, and then we're going to plug in Avantax and Mr. Harrison in to do that phase for us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion on item number 32? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 33, resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Foosh Parish government and the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and Agriculture and Mechanical College to provide services to the Lafourche Parish Animal Shelter and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. Item number 34, resolution approving amendment number 1 to the agreement between the Lafourche Parish government and CSRS Disaster Recovery Management LLC for professional services in response to Hurricane Ida, and authorizing parish president to sign, execute, and administer said amendment and any and all relative documents by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 34 passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Melvin. All right, item M, parish president, department heads, directors, or managers' reports, presentations, and/or updates. Number 35, Department of Public Works to present a report. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As noted, Mr. Barone is not with us tonight. He is watching via the live stream at home, though. So if you do have any questions for him, I'm sure he's taking notes. We'll better get the answers back to you. His presentation is already uploaded. As we noted last time, we're going to start to upload it on Facebook. The presentation is on there rotating as we speak on Facebook. So if you need to share it with your constituents or if anybody watching, the message needs to see it. I think Robbie's going to play it in the background for us. But it's his typical DPW presentation, Thibodeau field work, Paula Drive, sweeping outfall ditches, Manchester Manor, they repaired a base failure. I hope I'm doing Dylan proud. Thibodeau Field Office repaired washout on Talbot Extension. Thibodeau Field Office Bayou Vista Substation culvert repair. Choctaw Field Office, the Banan North Levee outfall, it was swept. It's Banan. Bayou Bluefield Office. See, you made me skip that one, Dylan. Racing Field Office, they swept the Rodriguez outfall. Hospital Drive swept their outfall ditches. Gibson Street, drainage improvements, Industrial Park drainage, the Buchanan outfall. This was one of the big ditches that silted in during the storm, so we're doing some improvements while we're back there getting that muck out. LeBlanc Drive, base failure, West 7th Street, sweeping roadside ditches, West 133rd Street, trimming trees, Providence Avenue North, swept the outfall. We continue to do work on that project. That came out of one of the big rainfalls that we had last year, where we put some money in to help that neighborhood. With that, Mr. Chairman, I have some things, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them.
Anybody have any questions on Public Works for the president?
You
Go ahead, Terry.
I had some questions, but being Dylan's not here, I'll just wait, I'll talk to him in person.
Yeah. And I do know Terry Mitch has been going back and forth. We're waiting on one more right away on that Gazal outfall. He's telling me done, so Ms. Barker must have agreed to the terms that we had in there, so hopefully that helps us make some progress on that one.
Can we get started on the part that we have the right of way on?
Yes, sir, we're working on that.
Good.
About smoke tests, did we hear anything more with the,
Yes, I talked to Ms. Carlene before the meeting. I actually talked to Mayor Eshe today.
to the neighborhood watch?
Yeah, the neighborhood watch.
Good.
So we reached out to LRWA. I talked to Phil, who I worked with back when I was at the city. They sent some forms that we had to fill out with the city to actually have the smoke test done. I finished filling all that stuff out this morning, so I'm gonna email that back to LRWA first thing in the morning. So then at that point, they just have to schedule it. So I'm hopeful we get to do it in the next month or so.
How far do you expect them to run that smoke test? Because I understand they might have stopped a block over years ago, but I'd like to run as far as we can when they come out, you know?
Yeah, so in theory, I would like to go from the cross street where the lift station originally was supposed to go, and then go all the way back behind those houses, all the way till it terminates, so we can see what the entire length of that pipe looks like.
Now, is this, so this is a separate entity, I mean, it's coming and run, so it's a program that
Yeah, so
we apply for?
yeah, it's run by the Louisiana Rural Water Association. They have a smoke testing machine that you can apply for through their funding. They come out for free and run the smoke test for you.
Because I have about 4 addresses around Park Drive that I'd like to, you know, to include. I don't know, I don't want to hold up this one, maybe do a separate request on it.
Yeah, we can.
I'll get it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grove. Mr. Otang.
Yeah, Archie, so we had discussed at the last council meeting about private developments or private drives, and debris contractors access, specifically Cassidy Lane. You and I spoke about, and this week I started getting blasted again. So I know they had taken off through the holidays.
Yep.
Can you just give an update maybe in general and then specific for Cassidy Lane?
Yeah, so all of the debris contractors started to come back. And it was on my list. Last week, we have about 15 trucks running right now. There's still some up in the northern area, although we've turned everything over from Highway 90 north through Thibodeau, Bayou Blue, and Pawnesh has been turned back over to River Birch full-time. We do have some larger piles that River Birch has identified that came out over Christmas or right before that. So we do have a couple of trucks running in there. We met with the debris contractors on Monday to specifically talk about private property debris removal, some private streets, Cassidy Lane being one of them. I think there were a couple of other ones. No, that was not one of them. And a couple of the trailer parks that we service garbage, so we can actually physically now, with the approval of FEMA, go in there and get it. So I've talked to a couple of the residents on Cassidy Lane this week as well. I would think, and I told them in the next week or so, they should see some substantial progress now that we've given the debris contractor the okay to hit it. We've had over 400 or so applicants in the private property debris removal, so the home demolition program. Our debris monitor WIT is working on qualifying those 400 applicants. It is a separate process. Each property has to go through FEMA's EHP process, which is historical preservation, all that fun stuff. So they're thinking in about the next 3 weeks, they should be able to begin on those private property demolitions at the earliest. They are still taking applications here in Matthews, at Lockport Town Hall and Golden Meta Town Hall. The Golden Meta and Lockport locations will stop on the 17th. From the 17th to the 31st. If you still need to apply, you're gonna have to come here, and the drop dead date for anybody to apply for that private property debris removal is gonna be January 31st. You're gonna see it start to push out some of that messaging. Robbie and I have been talking about that since the debris contract, or the debris meeting on Monday. We are also working with them to try to figure out what the final drop dead dates are gonna be for pickup, because we're fastly approaching that point. There's still some debris between 182 and the Company Canal. They expect to have that done in about the next 2 weeks. Then we're gonna focus on the Company Canal to the intercoastal, and then the intercoastal south. They claim and they think that sometime mid-February they're gonna be completely done. I don't think that. I still stand by my Easter time frame, that I think we're gonna be at this till Easter, if not later. But I wanna caution people that, and I know once we put out those dates, we're gonna get a lot of kickback. Terrebonne did it when they put out theirs right before Christmas. I understand that people are still dealing with insurance and they're still waiting on adjusters and fighting that stuff. But if you have contractors working at your house, that contractor has to get a dumpster. That contractor cannot continue to bring stuff to the road and expect us as the parish to come pick it up. There's a finite pool of money here. We can't pick up garbage forever. So I want to remind people that if you are still dealing with that and you plan on having contractors come in and gut your house, the contractor's responsible for hauling that stuff off. You can't continue to pile it by the road. Now, if you're doing it yourself, I hate to say it's gonna be an honor system, right? You can walk up and say, well, I did it myself, Archie, you know, and there's really no way to do that unless we see some contractors out front. But we are gonna start to set some drop dead dates of what that's gonna look like, especially the intercoastal north. I know that debris is really waning on this end. I've driven around, I haven't seen it a whole bunch. I know there's a few areas that still have some small pockets. The majority of our concentration, probably after the 24th of January, is gonna be extreme south Lafourche, to try to get that stuff up. We do plan to make one more pass, Daniel, so you know, and Chet, if you can help me pass this on, in Point Fouchon. The last day to put your stuff out in Point Fouchon is gonna be the 17th. And then after the 17th, they're gonna make one more pass through that development to grab all of that. There's not that much left in there anyway, but we're gonna make one more sweep down there as well. I think I covered it all.
So how was it, the interaction? So I got some calls from businesses and actually the Lens District, and I'm not sure why they reached out to me, but how is the interaction with the state going right now in terms of, are we moving along and making progress? I know there's been some roadblocks at times.
Yeah, and we've gotten some calls that people are calling the state's saying they're done picking up. We checked with DOTD Monday, and they are still actively having trucks come back in as well from the Christmas break. I think we are gonna continue to have some issues with the commercial debris. I know we have some issues along the Côte Blanche connection that I'm trying to work with our guys to go get, because the state is still refusing to pick up that commercial debris, especially now, because there's not a whole lot left along the state routes. So we're continuing to work through that with them on a case-by-case basis. We gave our debris contractor some spots to go look at in our meeting Monday. The Côte Blanche connection was one of them. There's some issues around Dufresne lumber that I think Bob and our debris contractors were gonna go look at. So those are gonna be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. If it's a commercial, we go back to what we said in the beginning. If it's a commercial establishment that fits that mold, if it's a mom and pop, the farm market, Dufresne lumber, something that's not a chain, right, then we can go get it. I know there's a huge pile of trash on the Tarpon Pass in front of a hotel. We're not gonna be able to pick that up. They need to go get a dumpster. That's something that business I know has insurance or the means to do it. So those piles are gonna stay there, and we're gonna have to work with those property owners to get that stuff cleaned up.
Not necessarily debris, but just oddly enough, or interestingly enough, I came across some emails I was exchanging with the last parish president regarding rain going into the coroner's office. So just any updates?
Yeah, so you're stealing all my thunder. No, I'm kidding.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I actually talked to Mitch about this today. We're gonna have a cooperative endeavor. I don't think it'll be on the next meeting. It'll probably be the first meeting in February between us, the Lafourche Coroner's Office, Terrebonne Parish, and Terrebonne Parish's Coroner's Office to utilize their facility to do autopsies. The girls right now are housed at the Raceland Field office. We made a spot for them in there that's working out quite well. We've hired or met with all the architects and engineers on all of the damages, pump stations and buildings that we're gonna dole out. A lot of those contracts are gonna be probably on the next council agenda, if not the first meeting in February. So in the coroner's office specifically, that whole building's coming down. We're gonna do it all in one shot. We had Andy, and I think he left, but we had Andy working on just the morgue component to build a new autopsy room and a couple little offices. Economies of scale, insurance is paying things out, as Mitch noted, fairly well. So we're just gonna knock it down all in one fell swoop, let them do autopsies at the Homa facility, keep them working out of the field office, and then build them a brand new facility on that same footprint. When it comes to all the other buildings, as Mitch noted, we had about $5 million of damage here. We continue to work on the Galiana complex. The gut there is almost done. They've gotten through the library, the Head Start. They're in that kind of public parish wing. The library board meeting is next week, I think, or maybe Monday. So there's going to be some decisions made, I think, about how they move forward. They have, we kind of piece the buildings together by architect space, right? So Skipper Holloway is going to, hopefully, if you guys approve these contracts, I'll give you a preview, is going to handle all of the buildings downtown. So the DA's office, our building, the post office, the old post office where finance and buildings and maintenance is, and the ag building. Andy and them are going to continue to handle the courthouse and the annex because they were already working on that. The morgue, this building, because they originally designed this building, as well as the Galiana complex. So we'll be in a lot of these meetings with the library to figure out how to put their pieces back together, with our people to figure out how to put our buildings back together, as well as working around jury schedules and the judges and things like that in the courthouse and the DA's office. I got a text message from Billy Joe about two things: the Leeville boat launch and the Gold Medal Library. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's going to come up Monday night at the library board meeting about the Gold Medal Library. I'm not aware that they've made any decisions on that yet, but I'm sure that'll be come up at the board meeting. But we have a long way to go on a lot of these buildings. As you see, there's still some ceiling tiles missing. All the buildings have been dried in. 95% of the remediation has been done in all the buildings. The other big building that we're gonna have to rebuild completely besides the Galliano, and the morgue, is the health unit in Galliano. We got in there and started to do some remediation work, started to open up some walls and realized there was a lot of termite damage. So we're gonna build a brand new health unit. There's a dedicated tax for that, which helps us as well. So we're gonna build a brand new building, for that down there as well as the Tourist Commission building. That one's a total loss. So we're gonna knock that building down hopefully in the next few weeks. Leave a slab and then let the Tourism Commission is really gonna design that building, because we're gonna hand it off to them after. It's gonna be their building, they're gonna own and insure it. So they're gonna drive the bus on what it's gonna look like, but they're gonna use one of the architects we qualified. On the pump station side, we have one more meeting. We're meeting with PCL and Associates in the morning to talk about their pump stations, working through not only the design of the process, but having the engineers meet with Hunt Giat and Associates, who's doing all of our FEMA paperwork, and hopefully getting FEMA to pay whatever the overage is. The main goal on the pump stations is that we can, while we rebuild some of these things, that we can harden them. So looking at concrete decks instead of timber decks, looking at, direct line shaft pumps, things that can pump water more effectively, more efficiently. We can put 2 pumps instead of 4 because we're using better equipment, those sorts of things. We're trying to think through ahead of that so we're not, we won't have any trouble with it as long as all of us are in office, but thinking maybe the guy in 10 years, maybe he won't have any trouble with it either. We have a great opportunity to get, $50 million worth of new pump stations. Now's the time to grab that money. So you'll start to see those contracts with those architects and engineers in the next couple of meetings.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Chasson. Oh, Ms.
Hey.
Laurie.
Yeah, Archie, the calls I've been getting lately is them black bags. There's a bunch of them. And I also get, when are they gonna put the recycling bin back? You'd be surprised how many people call me on that.
Yeah.
And I tell them that they're probably throwing trash in there. Yeah. So I don't know when.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer on the recycle bins, Daniel. My fear is that if we put them out there, people are gonna throw more trash in it than recycle. So we've kind of pumped the brakes on it. The contractor did start to pick up, our debris contractor did start to pick up the black bags before they left for Christmas. They actually came up with a scheme where they cut a certain number of them open, make sure it's actual construction debris, not nothing bad, and then they take the whole pile.
But people use the black bags, thinking that they're doing some good, because most of it is leaves and whatever. But I've seen the other day, I've seen some clear bags. So what I think needs to be done is educate the public.
So believe it or not, it doesn't matter if it's clear, white, black, purple. If it's in a bag, they don't pick it up initially.
I thought you had said because if it was black, they couldn't see what was in it.
But I use the term black bag as a generic term. If it's in any type of bag, they won't pick it up on the initial run.
Because it's plastic?
Well, it's just a FEMA rule because they can't really verify what's in it. So it gets stupid. I'm as frustrated as you are with FEMA right now, but.
No, I don't think so.
No, I believe it or not, yeah, I believe it.
No, no, you got a lot of stress. I'm not gonna argue that.
I know.
But don't think I don't have none.
But look at that white hair, I know you got some.
So we get to, you want me to show you the picture when I was 30? Had a mustache and black hair.
No, yeah.
Okay?
You can keep lobbing them, come on.
You gonna make the round after a while, or what? How you gonna handle it?
We're gonna go to discussion in a second.
Okay.
Ms. Chasson.
I do have a question about, we used to do taxes for free at the libraries.
Yep.
Are we doing that?
We are. So Mitch is starting to have those conversations with VITA right now. What I think we're gonna end up doing in South Lafourche is using the LaRose Library.
Okay.
We're actually talking right now about trying to figure out how to put community action and permits in there as well, so we have some presence again in South Lafourche. Hey, look, I'm thinking about you, Daniel. I'm also trying to figure out, I don't think FEMA's gonna approve it. I've been trying for a few days now to put some type of modular office set up in the parking lot of the Galliana complex to have something there again. I'm trying to get FEMA to pay for it so we don't have to pay $2,000 a month to rent the facility. But all else fails, then we're gonna use the LaRose Library.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. Item number N, discussion. Anybody have anything that hasn't been discussed during normal business or the DPW segment? You had something else, Daniel? Yeah, this is your round if you got something.
Oh, I'm on?
You on.
Okay. What I want to say is that we have an employee that retired, and he was 65. He's been here 29 years, and I'm going to tell you, I dealt with this guy. I've been here 39 years, and he's been here 29 years. You ain't gonna find the most honest man that will try to help you and get the problem solved. And he ain't gonna do anything that he shouldn't do. He'll do it the right way. And that's Mr. Jerome Danos. I just want to let the public know that that guy is going to be hard to be replaced. Now, I'll say this. Anybody can be replaced. You can get somebody just as good, or you can get somebody maybe better, or maybe not as good. That's the chance you take. But I mean, there's no control because he retired. So I want to wish him good luck. And he said he was going to go do some community services and all for the public. I said, you better be careful. You don't get paid for that, bro. But anyway, back to Archie. I heard he said something about the permits. We might be putting a building down there. That's fine. And can get maybe some community action there because we got a lot of needy there. And, this is the kicker. Bass. Bass has picked up a lot of stuff in this parish. They're a subsidy of energy. They're picking up the post lights, the posts that were broken, the wiring. But where is E-Tail? E-Tail hasn't picked anything up. They tell you how great their internet service is. After 3 months, we finally got it back. But I don't see anything with E-Tail. You go to Tobacco Plus, you got wire hanging all over the place. You go by Walmart, they got wire hanging all over the place. You come on 308 toward the Lockport area, you got some still hanging in the posts. So can you get with E-Tail and see if we can get something done with them? I mean, if their internet is so great, why can't they pick up their mess? I can tell you for a fact, I got some people that did not get their trash picked up because of that wire from E-Tail being in it. I'm serious. They're throwing some of the wire in the trash piles that we're supposed to pick up. So try to talk to them and see if they can get that picked up.
Yeah, I can ask Eddie.
Yeah, go ahead. Well,
yeah, I'll pass along to Eddie.
I'm not finished.
Well, hold on, I'm not finished either.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to kind of echo Daniel. Bass has been a great partner. They're going to straighten out some lights for us for free at the Golameta Park. We've been in touch. The local cattlemen have reached out. I think wanted some of the poles for maybe some fencing or something. Talked to Stacy Fontenot with Energy. They got the cattlemen in touch with Bass. They're looking to dump these poles anyway. So if you know anybody who needs some timber poles for something, I think all of you have Stacy's contact with Energy. If you don't, I'll give it to you. We can funnel those people in Energy. They're willing to donate those poles to help, I guess, recycle them so they don't end up all at the landfill as well. But Bass has done a great job cleaning up the mess that Energy left when they restored the power for us. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so you said that the library is meeting Monday?
I think it's Monday. Hold on.
I thought he said Tuesday.
They should send
So it's the 24th. I'm sorry.
The 24th?
Yeah, in Raceland.
Maybe if they'd meet every month, they wouldn't run into the problems they run into. That's just my opinion. Back to, the trash. I got a guy that called me and I went right and see, and this is true. He hired a contractor. He bought this trailer and the property to the 40s off of 32 on the west side. He hired a contractor to push all the stuff to the front, which they did. Okay, it cost them $5,000. Now, I'm serious. That's what he told me. And I'm only telling you what he told me. The sad part is about a 300 or 400 foot Cheryl Road to get to that trailer that's not there anymore because he pushed it all the way to the front by the highway. Well, guess what? He went there one day, and he don't really live there, but he went there. He had 4 loads of shingles. So he called the sheriff's office. He said nothing really happened. So he went back a couple of days later. Now he's got 30 loads of shingles down his driveway. So that's really not fair for him to have to push that. He did what he had to do, and now we got 30 loads of shingles. So we'll look at it and see what we can come up with. And so you said something about the Leeville boat launch and the Golameta boat launch?
Yeah, so we're meeting with Joe tomorrow about the pump stations, but that's also on my list. I think if you guys remember, we created a project last year to do some improvements to Golden Meadow. He has a project that's ready to go, to bid out. My hope is that I know he's been to Leeville, he's come up with a plan. My hope is that we bid that project out in the next couple of weeks. My target date to get the bull entry open is March, really before the fish start to run down there. So we're gonna, hopefully I'm not over-promising and delivering, but I hope for March.
The only thing, the Golden Meadow launch they're using it, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I hope nobody gets hurt because you know who's gonna get. And
That's why we shut down Leeville. I didn't want anybody trying to.
No, I know, Leeville, but there's a couple of people that squeeze by or whatever. You got a four-wheel drive, I guess, but you know how that is. You're always gonna have somebody doing something they shouldn't. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you.
Wade?
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine.
Adams?
Mr. Otan.
Yeah, I just want to mention a couple, I want to reiterate what Mr. Daniel said about Jerome Danos and wish him well going into the future, because I can tell you, since I became a councilman, he was the most responsive guy that I dealt with from the administrative side. And as y'all know, we get a lot of complaints, and just a Class A guy, not only with the solid waste here, but also even with the household hazardous waste day that we'd have out front. I mean, he's a guy that was instrumental in organizing that, and I know there's others now who are going to try to take that over, as I understand. I also just want to let everyone know that, you know, we're starting to see a lot of exchange communication. Looks like paddle by Lafourche is going to happen again this year. It's looking like the bayou cleanup is now in its planning stages. Carnival clubs are now scheduling their parades. Festivals are in the planning stages in the early spring. So I know we have this latest spike in COVID, but it looks like things are going to really start to try to move forward here soon. Last thing I want to say is I just want to express my sincere gratitude to all those people who supported, whether it's through volunteerism or financially, for all the Christmas festivities we just had. As someone that's involved in those, from the nonprofits like the fire departments to individuals to businesses to government entities. We had some really neat Christmas festivities on the bayou, whether it was parades, whether it was gift giving, whether it was meals provided. So I sincerely thank everyone who had anything to do with all that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. President.
You know, I thought you were going all the way around. Anyway, okay. The one thing I didn't talk about was street lights. I forwarded you guys all in energy. I know you slipping, Daniel. I thought it was coming. I forwarded you guys an update from Energy that we got Monday. Their restoration plan, it wasn't a whole lot of detail, just said that they hope to have all the streetlights back up and operational by March. So we still not paying the bill until they can give me some idea of what their time frame is. But they're working pretty hard on it. As Noonie mentioned, Mardi Gras is coming up. We have a meeting here tomorrow night with all the crews that are planning on rolling. I think even a couple of the down-the-body crews that aren't rolling are still sending people. But tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here with the crews in the sheriff's office, Lockport PD, to work through, just make sure everybody's on the same page, we're all good, that their traffic concerns are lined up with the sheriff's office, things like that. So Captain Champagne will be here from their end as well. Mr. Otan, thank you for your leadership over the last couple of years. As the chairman, it's been great to work with you. Anytime you and Ms. Carlene were really gracious to sneak some stuff on the agenda for us when we got pressed down. So I appreciate that. Councilman Wendell, Councilwoman Chesson, looking forward to it. And to the whole group, you know, 2022 is here. Let's make it a rock star year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it, sir. Last thing before we adjourn, each of you should have a rate increase notice from the Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office. We just want to give that a look because it takes effect February 1st, 2022. So if you have any issues, any concerns, you can make your problems known. Okay, item O, adjournment. Motion by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones. That with no further business, the Lafourche Parish regular council meeting Tuesday, January 11, 2022 should be adjourned. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Mr. Melvin at 7:16 p.m.